it's a week after this. It's not this week.
Next week.
We're going to board.
My question kind of relates to what one of the points that you made about the website being the primary source of getting the word out there. My question is, how do you address the lack of traction for net neutrality legislation today?
Well, we're strong supporters of net neutrality, that's for sure. And I think, one of the stories we're looking at right now is increased security, and the president could really shut down the internet if the president chose to.
That was
yeah, and so there is no, ultimately, in case of martial law or national security issues, the internet's gone. But in the meantime, we have these capacities, and of course, most of the people in the world aren't online. So this information has to get translated over and be on radio, in print, and being talked about in communities in a broader way. And radio is probably one of the strongest, particularly in other countries, one of the strongest mechanisms. So you can build a whole news radio show just off of our daily news site. And it is being used in that capacity now in greater detail. So all these sources we consider valid. So that's part of the encouragement to move in that direction. If you take a show like Democracy Now!, which reaches 800 stations around the country, probably a few million people, they'll come up with something completely contradictory to what corporate media is saying. And they can have an impact. So we need that worldwide. And we need multiple Democracy Nows in this country. So, one hour a day news show is not enough. We need lots.
And we do work with a lot of different radio groups, and some promising news in terms of net neutrality, even though what Peter said, how the internet could just be shut down, kind of like the online version of the swine flu virus kind of thing, right? You can have that go on, and they can just shut everything down for national security reasons or what have you. But radio, one way they could also control. But there's some promising things going on. Just today, Mike Doyle, a representative outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is really working on pushing net neutrality through Congress and expanding low-power FM radio stuff. So trying to get a lot more community radio stations in communities where they ought to be. So that's a real promising thing. Prometheus Radio is doing a lot of work on that. So there really are a lot of people working on these issues. FreePress.net actually has a lot of information about net neutrality campaigns. I don't know if you follow anything that goes on with the public hearings for the FCC, but if you were following this when the FCC was trying to further consolidate media ownership rules, 99% of the people that came out to make public comments about what the FCC was doing were opposed to what they were doing. They went and Michael Powell, son of Colin Powell, tried to do it anyway, and the Senate, of all bodies, actually stepped in and said, wait a minute, that's too many people. We might be in trouble when it comes time for re-election. So the public is very, and it's interesting because people on the far right, far left, whatever passes for that in the United States, they get it. They get the net neutrality thing, and you need to get people more mobilized. Like no matter what your number one issue is, whether it's Israel and Palestine, whether it's 9/11, voter fraud, workers' rights, whatever. If your number two issue isn't media reform, media freedom, free press issues, and net neutrality, you're gonna have a heck of a time dealing with your number one issue. So getting the word out is a big thing, and that's why we're really interested in trying to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to make one comment. You can expect the corporate controlled media to lie, cover up, deceive, and everything else in their struggle to maintain power and profits. And I'm saying this as a 30-year union member in the Carpenters Union, and as one who was very, very active in the Carpenters Union at all levels, including up to going to national conventions and so on. But the other side of the problem is that our own union leaders are participating in this same cover-up. And when you say, how we have this truth emergency, well, part of it is because the union leadership has carried our unions further and further into bed with management, whether it be on what's happening in Israel to the Wall Street takeover of Washington, D.C. And the number one message that both sides put out is, there's nothing you can do about it. So, and half of that message, I think, is put out by their silence on what is being done. I'd just like to make one other point. There's a news story that's going on right now today that probably hardly anybody has heard about, and that is in Vienna, Austria, right now there's thousands of college students that are occupying their university with all sorts of radical demands, including free education. So, anyway,
gender
there
equality.
is something you can do about it, and as more and more young people get involved, I think that'll swing the mood and that truth emergency will dissipate a little bit. Thank you for the work you do.
Hi, I'd like to thank SDS for putting this on. My name is Mary McElroy. I'm the Peace and Freedom Party candidate in the special election next week. I have a comment and a question. My comment is, with junk media, another side effect of that is alienation that we suffer from. We know more about Balloon Boy or whatever reality show star is on the cover of this week's People magazine than we do about what's going on with our coworkers, our fellow students, or our neighbors. And that causes a real disconnect when things happen in our lives as well as in the broader political public sphere. And my question is, would either one of you or both of you comment about the swine flu news coverage and the hysteria around that?
The swine flu, I mean, 30,000 people die a year from the flu anyway. Swine flu may be a little more serious, fine, but it's certainly scaring us a lot more. And so that's part of that idea of keeping people scared and keeping people worried, and some corporations are going to save us in some capacity, or some what George Lakoff called daddy figure, so to speak. And so that those images get portrayed. You mentioned alienation, and I just briefly like to comment on that. I mean, alienation is a separation of who you are as a person from what you're doing in life. And so who you're engaged with, or what you're seeing, and what's around you. The cure for that is activism. So, I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's Maslow saying self-actualization is engaging in doing activities to which you internally believe are important and valuable. So whatever issues are yours, you know, the cure for that, for alienation, feeling separate, isolated, is engage, finding people who are like-minded, or being your own activist in whatever way you can.
And on the swine flu tip, it's been linked to paralysis. More people that are getting the shot seem to be getting sick in the first place. The same company that's doing it is Baxter Healthcare, which is the same company that was profiteering from sending 70,000 odd live doses of avian flu vaccines to Europe, and they stopped it before they were able to be giving it out. There's hundreds of billions of dollars behind this. There's a lot of healthcare professionals that are totally opposed to it, but all you'll see in the corporate media of it is like, Jenny McCarthy's against it, she's an airhead, what does she know? You know, they junk it. They abuse it and turn it into junk real quick, because a lot of people aren't getting it or don't want to get this vaccine. We did a whole story on Gardasil in the 2009 book. You know, in this country in particular, if you have a kid, you're lucky enough to have insurance. I don't know if you're lucky enough. Well, that's another debate. But you get thrown into these corporatized HMO kind of settings where they put your kid on a treadmill and they got to get the 10 vaccines this month and 4 more next month and this and this and this. And if you go in there, and if you're not educated about this, and if you don't have time to do this, fortunately for me, my wife knows a lot about women's health care issues and child care issues, and is a doula, and knows a lot about this kind of thing. And just the research is there. It's just like this stuff. The research is there. And the research is showing that this is not like a work, it's not necessarily a work thing, you get the shot, you don't get the flu. What they're showing, a lot of people are getting it anyway. People that are getting it is as worse, as bad as they may have thought. And what they are also showing is a lot of people that are dying from it are dying from other complications, and they already had other compromised health risks, and they're not necessarily reporting that in the corporate media. You know, I mean, There's a story here in the paper here, William.